Good morning.
Good morning.
It's going to be another beautiful day and hopefully not too hot. I am Reverend Suzie Matranga-Watson, and I am your worship leader this morning. Just a little reminder. Please turn off your cell phones. I will show you how it's done. Or at least it's done on this phone. Thank you. Okay. Eastrose acknowledges that for at least 13,000 years, many tribes and bands have made their homes here, where our church home and our communities now exist. We remember and honor these people who have made their homes in this land, and the ones who are here now, and those who have lived here before. In peace, may we share this land and honor one another. Let's take a moment and greet each other, both in the chapel and online. First, turn around. We have a clock on the wall. Yay! Thank you, John. And also wave hello to all our friends online. And then turn to your neighbors and say hello. You will have plenty of time to talk to each other after the service with a cup of coffee or a cup of tea. We have a responsive reading this morning. It's from Henry David Thoreau, To Live Deliberately. Now, I'm going to read the leader, which is yellow. And we're all going to read the yellow. Mine are italicized.
We're going to read the white.
Oh, I mean the white.
Yes.
Yes, I'm yellow, you're white. Okay. Why should we live in such a hurry and a waste of life? We are determined to be starved before we are hungry. I wish to live deliberately, in front only the essential facts of life. I wish to learn that life has to teach. I do not wish to live what is not life. Living is so dear.
Nor do I wish to practice resignation unless it is quite necessary.
I wish to live deep and suck out all the marrow of life.
I want to cut a broad swath, to drive life into a corner and reduce it to its lowest terms.
If it proves to be mean, then to get the whole and genuine meanness of it and publish its meanness to the world.
Or if it is sublime, to know by experience and to be able to give a true account of it.
Okay. That was beautiful. Thank you. The chalice lighting words are from Christine Robinson. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together.
Thank you, Susie. Good morning, everyone. It's good to be back with you today. It's been a couple weeks. Our opening words today are a reading some of you have heard before, I think, from me. It's called Autobiography in 5 Short Chapters by Portia Nelson. Chapter 1, I walk down the street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I fall in. I am lost. I am helpless. It isn't my fault. It takes me forever to find a way out. Chapter 2, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I pretend I don't see it. I fall in again. I can't believe I'm in the same place, but it isn't my fault. It still takes me quite a bit of time to get out. Chapter 3, I walk down the same street. There is a deep hole in the sidewalk. I see it there. I still fall in. It's a habit. My eyes are open. I know where I am. It is my fault. I get out immediately. Chapter 4, I walk down the same street. There's a deep hole in the sidewalk. I walk around it. Chapter 5, I walk down another street. Our opening hymn today is number 6 in the gray hymnal, Just as Long as I Have Breath, and the words will also be on the screen. Please rise as you are willing and able.
Good morning, everyone. Today's story is called After the Fall, How Humpty Dumpty Got Back Up Again by Dan Santat. We all know that Humpty had a great fall, but what happened next? Here we'll see how Humpty deals with unexpected problems, just like we sometimes face in our own lives. As we listen, think about how we might handle surprises or when things don't go the way we hoped they would. Can we be brave like Humpty, accept what is, and try again? Let's see how he faces the situation. After the fall. My name is Humpty Dumpty. This was my favorite spot, high up on the wall. I know it's an odd place for an egg to be, but I loved being close to the birds. Then one day I fell. I'm sort of famous for that part. Folks called it the Great Fall, which sounds a little grand. It was just an accident, but it changed my life. Fortunately, all the king's men managed to put me back together. Well, most of me. There were some parts that could not be healed with bandages and glue. After that day, I became afraid of heights. I was so scared that it kept me from enjoying some of my favorite things. I walked past the wall every day, and I would think about climbing that ladder again. I really missed the birds and being high above the city, but I could never do it because I knew that accidents can happen. I eventually settled for watching the birds from the ground. It wasn't the same, but it was better than nothing. Then one day, an idea flew by. Making planes was harder than I thought. It was easy to get cuts and scratches, but day after day I kept trying and trying until I got it just right. My plane was perfect and it flew like nothing could stop it. I hadn't felt that happy in a long time. It wasn't the same as being up in the sky with the birds, but it was close enough. Unfortunately, accidents happen. They always do. I almost walked away again, but then I thought about all the time I had spent working on my plane and all the other things I'd missed. I decided I was going to climb that wall. But the higher I got, the more nervous I felt. I didn't want to admit it. I was terrified. I didn't look up, I didn't look down, I just kept climbing one step at a time until I was no longer afraid. Maybe now you won't think of me as that egg who was famous for falling. Hopefully, you'll remember me as the egg who got back up and learned how to fly. The story reminds us that even if we fall down, we can always try to get back up. It might take courage, it might not be easy, but sometimes we might even end up somewhere better than before. And now we'll leave Reverend Robin and the adults and head back to our classroom. Thank you.
I invite you now into a quiet place where we're going to do some breathing, and I actually have a guided meditation today by my colleague, Nathan Walker. So if you're comfortable doing so, please close your eyes, uncross your arms, put your feet on the floor, drop your shoulders, take a deep breath, and exhale. Feel where you have tension in your head, in your face, in your neck. Drop your shoulders. See if you can release tension in your arms and your hands, and move down your body, seeing if you can create spaciousness, and openness, peacefulness. And breathe. 4 beats in slowly through your nose, 5 or 6 beats out slowly through your mouth in a steady rhythm, creating intentional breathing routine. 4 beats in, 5 or 6 beats out. Try to empty your mind as you relax your body. Open your heart, create spaciousness. Breathing in, I am aware of my pain. Breathing out, I am aware that I am not my pain. Breathing in, I am aware of my past. Breathing out, I am aware that I am not my past. Breathing in, I am aware of my anger. Breathing out, I am aware that I am not my anger. Breathing in, I am aware of my despair. Breathing out, I am aware that I am not my despair. Breathing in, I am aware of peace. Breathing out, I am aware that I am worthy of peace. Breathing in, I am aware of love. Breathing out, I am aware that I am worthy of love. Breathing in, I am aware of joy. Breathing out, I am aware that I am an agent of joy. Breathing in, I am aware of hope. Breathing out, I am aware that I am an agent of hope. Breathing in, I am aware. Slowly and peacefully come back into this space with a few more rounds of breath. Breathe and allow. We'll remain seated for our quiet song. It's number 123 in the gray hymnal, Spirit of Life.
I have two readings. The first is called Fault Line by Robert Walsh. Do you ever think there might be a fault line passing underneath your living room? a place in which your life is lived in meeting and separating, wondering and telling, unaware that just beneath you is the unseen great plates that strain through time. And that your life, already spilling over the brim, could be invaded, sent off in a new direction, turned aside by forces you were warned about but not prepared for. Shelves could be spilled out, the level floor set at an angle in a moment's shaking. You would have to take your losses, do whatever must be done next. When the great plates shift and the earth shivers, and the flaw is seen to lie in what you trusted most, look not moored to solidarity, to weighty slabs of concrete poured, or strength of cantilevered beam to save the fractured order. Trust more the tensile strands of love that bend and stretch to hold you in the web of life that's often torn, but always healing. There's your strength. The shifting plates, the resistive earth, your room, your precious life, they all proceed from love, the ground on which we walk together. The second reading is from Marilyn Chandler McIntyre, How to Recognize Grace. It takes you by surprise. It comes in odd packages. It sometimes looks like loss or mistakes. It acts like rain or a seed. It's both reliable and unpredictable. It's not what you were aiming at or what you thought you deserved. It supplies what you need, not necessarily what you want. It grows you up. It lets you be a child. It reminds you that you are not in control, and that not being in control is a form of freedom.
David Beeves is the man who had all the luck. In Arthur Miller's debut play of the same name, first staged in 1944, Beeves acts out an ironic reversal of Job's mythic misfortune in Hebrew scripture. Plagued by the contrast between his own success and the failure of those around him, he tries to make sense of his good fortune. Over time, this cosmic injustice breeds in David a fearful irony, and he becomes so convinced that something terrible will befall his newborn child, he cannot even bring himself to embrace his charmed son. He becomes deliberately reckless in order to tempt fate, even over-investing in a capricious mink farming business. Why? Why always me, he wonders, in his success. Job is the faithful servant for whom luck vanishes one ancient biblical day, along with his fortune, his family, and very nearly his faith. After God enters into a contest with Satan to determine Job's piety, the humble Israelite confronts his absurd misfortune by initially blessing God. Yet this serene, accepting man is not the same person we meet later in the book. His so-called comforters have offered him a smattering of half-baked explanations, and none of them come even close to soothing his wretchedness. The cosmos has become a dark and tangled place for him, absent of meaning and purpose, and Job wishes for the very life of the cosmos itself to end. Why me, Lord, he pleads, why me? Those of us gathered here today in Gresham reside somewhere between east of Eden and south of heaven and hopefully north of hell. We live and breathe in those charged places on the great prairie, smack between king of the hill and king of the ash heap, where we too find ourselves asking, why me? And where the misery and grandeur of human beings confront each other. Now, I'd call that place the human condition, and say that part of the project of living there deliberately, in the words of Henry David Thoreau, and with grace, is considering what meaning can be extracted from events that seem meaningless, random, unfair, and undeserved. On this July morning, with so much at stake in the world, a world akimbo, the randomness enigma begs the question of whether traditional religious concepts can ever really jibe with a universe that is at least partially random and uncontrollable. The pandemic definitely taught us that. How can we be saved in a random universe? And if salvation doesn't interest you, which perhaps it does not, given our context, then what about hope or faith? What are the points of these virtues in a partially random world where we are each likely to tumble in our human lives from summits of success or health onto ash heaps of despair or illness? Our starting point in assessing the blend of randomness and providence in the universe makes all the difference. In Job's Jewish context, God is supreme. God, in a way, is a puppeteer who, at his discretion or whim, makes bad things happen and good things happen, keeps us out of harm's way, or decides whether to clean up the mess afterwards. I used to refer to the Jewish God as, the purveyor of pearls and perils. In other paradigms, God is cast as an enabler who curates nature for our betterment or pleasure. In a Christian paradigm, assigning Jesus the role of preordained collective redeemer for everyone puts too much onus on him, I believe, not us, to practice confession and forgiveness, to be accountable for our own mistakes and choices, to save the world, to suffer some of life's inevitable crucifixions, and to invite the healing release of renewal. To be sure, it's now been a little over almost a year that I've been with you, and I'm looking out with compassion on a congregation that has had more than its share of Good Fridays. We hear about them each week during joys and sorrows. Prolonged unemployment, unexpected and uncertain medical diagnoses, failed relationships, troubled children, the loss of beloved family members and friends. Under all of these circumstances, I do wonder if it's helpful or comforting to cling to or revert to a construct that asks us to submit to the will or whim of a personal God. Your decision, as always, our fourth principle at work. If you are a humanist or an agnostic or an atheist or a fellow blended Unitarian Universalist like me, I think you can guess my opinion on this matter. I feel like these conventional concepts of God as a fixer lead us into an even thornier thicket of contradiction and defeat. For some, the sense of being let down by God shatters their faith entirely in a universe that they believed was divinely organized and maintained. Like Job, the modern-day theist has plenty of time to wonder, if God is good and all-powerful, and if I've been faithful, why is this fill-in-the-blank tragedy happening to me? And if God is not all-powerful and cannot stop this tragedy, why is he, she, they even worth worshiping? This problem is called the problem of theodicy. And this can result in a profound crisis of faith for people who believe in this paradigm, put their faith and hope in this paradigm. Or like David Beeves, our lucky guy, one may ask, although this scenario is very rare, why is good fortune always smiling on me? If God is fair and just, where is my share of sorrow? One summer, many, many years ago now, I was full of existential angst and convoluted musings about the breakup of my long marriage. Lots of whys and what ifs floated in the humid ether. I suppose more than anything, I just wanted a sign that I would recover and feel joyful again, but that I could not control the situation. One August afternoon, as I strode down the hill to the beach at White Pond, sort of next to Walden Pond in Concord, Mass., which was a local watering hole with my children, I noticed a whiteboard that was propped up against a tree, emblazoned with the following bold-faced message: "Lifeguard on duty doesn't know when the ice cream truck is coming." Exclamation point. And I had to laugh. And God, how I needed to laugh. Sure, we all assumed the good humor guy was going to show up at 3:30 as usual, but not even the lifeguard knew for sure, and he really didn't want to be pestered about it all day. Of course, I read my typical theological bent into this whiteboard message, because how could I resist? Here we are, we're waiting for the ice cream truck, full of all those goodies, and we really want it to come, and we want it to come on time without exception. But we have to be patient, we have to have faith, we have to accept uncertainty, and have our money ready for that mad dash when we hear that familiar melody beckoning us. Indulge me a bit here, because there's more to the metaphor. Let's say the ice cream truck shows up and it doesn't have what you want. They are out of chocolate eclair bars and you have to settle for a Choco Taco. Can you handle that with some grace? Or the truck shows up with its usual disclaimer: driver is not responsible for dropped ice cream. And despite your best effort, your creamsicle takes a nosedive into the sand. Now what? Are you going to blame God, that great lifeguard in the sky? These things happen. To be clear, a personal tragedy is not an ice cream truck, and the resulting fallout is not a creamsicle dropped in the sand. But we find ourselves waiting nonetheless for what will come, when it will arrive, and how it will affect us. Very few humans relish the state of precarity, as it is known, sort of same root as the word precarious. It's really not people's comfort zone to be in a state of precarity, right? Luckily, beyond the God construct, religious liberals can turn to other less conventional methods for processing suffering, loss, and misfortune. They're all in a wonderful book called A Faith for All Seasons by William Murray. And these include human cruelty, murder, corporate greed, bombing villages, human error, dropping your ice cream, or on a more serious note, smoking cigarettes and dying of lung cancer. Bad timing, finding yourself aboard an ill-fated jet on 9/11. Acts of nature, hurricanes, earthquakes, wildfires, inadvertently being exposed to the coronavirus before we knew its impact. And finally, sheer randomness beyond any rhyme or reason. This list may hit us like a cold shower when what we yearn for is a warm bath. As rational and humanistic as we profess to be, we may want to keep God or whatever we think of as sacred or powerful or true or comforting in this equation, and that's fine. Prayer is never prohibited. Any way you want to experience the world and your spirituality is your decision. I'm enriched by what the Rabbi Lawrence Kushner says about all this. He tells the story of a pregnant woman dying of a brain tumor who he meets while he's out shopping for bargains, and who joins his congregation, his synagogue, with her family during her decline. He writes, "They joined, she bore a daughter, she died, I did the funeral." Talk about a tumble. Years later, Kushner recalls delighting in that daughter, now a teenager, considering the rabbinate as her vocation. In the face of such a random and unfair tragedy, Kushner notes, sounding a bit like a transcendentalist, that the divine is everywhere and everything. He lifts up our old pal Job as an example to whom God shows the whole awesome pageant of life and death. A part of Job's story, by the way, that we seem to overlook or just don't know about. Because what happens in the story is when Job starts to lament, God shows him the whole panorama: lions tearing apart gazelles, vultures ripping flesh, thunderstorms, earthquakes, everything. And then he says to Job, in effect, "What do you think of that, huh? I hope you like it, because I am in that too, not just in feeling good. If you believe in me, I am in everything, even randomness, one can presume." Kushner writes, "Look, I don't think God made a tumor grow in that girl's brain, or that God has anything to do with this girl's choice of a career or where I shop for bargain basement clothes. But I can't get it out of my head that somehow God is mixed up in the whole horrible, holy, joyous, goddamn thing." Yes, clergy do swear, including me, but not from up here. Naturally, as a rabbi, Kushner is a theist at heart, liberal as he may be, and this sanctuary isn't a Jewish temple. It's a Unitarian Universalist congregation, where for some of us, God isn't mixed up in the whole horrible, joyous, goddamn thing at all. In fact, many of us reject this idea entirely, and that's why we're here, and resonate more strongly with science and probability theory, like the St. Petersburg paradox or what's called the Monty Hall problem, than we do with this sort of A plus B equals C theology. Now, rational perspectives may not be entirely bloodless or without important religious value. As compelling as these theories are, in truth, they offer no more guarantee of cheating tragedy, a virus, or failure than blind faith in a random universe. I recently learned in the Monty Hall scheme from the TV classic show Let's Make a Deal, which I imagine many of you are familiar with, the cloying game show host always shows the contestant one of the bad doors among the three choices. I never noticed that. This way, the contestant always has a 50-50 chance of winning. Now, if life were only that predictable, if only the universe showed us the bad doors and cut a deal with us, that would improve the odds, right? And I'm reminded of a wonderful New Yorker cartoon that shows a male contestant facing this dilemma. In your case, Bob, says Monty, there's a choice: perpetual bliss, incessant despair, or whatever is in the box that our lovely Carol is holding. Now, given these choices, the mystery box is the one I would pick because it's most like the life I'm destined to live and you're destined to live anyway. Some bliss, some despair, lots of unknowns, gifts and zingers wrapped up in unexpected packages that arrive on our doorstep, usually COD. The question is, for me, for each of us, can I accept the randomness and let go? Can I remain grounded in precarity? When the world suddenly and unexpectedly tilts and breaks open at the fault line, can I face that reality and not be crushed by it, run from it, or explain it away with convenient myths? Can I surrender my illusion of control, sort of like our old fragile friend Humpty Dumpty in the story Tara told earlier? My colleague, Mark Bellatini, who was minister for many years in Columbus, Ohio, answers this question by saying, a religious liberal surrenders to reality, not to omnipotent fate. Our wishes about the world are not reality. Our dream of the way the world should be or ought to be are not reality, even if they are worthy and aspirational. Something certainly to think about right now, worthy and aspirational dreams. The questions like, how can they behave that way? Or, why me, Lord, he says, are ways of avoiding reality. They do believe that way. That is what they think. These things do happen to us. Yes, I did lose my job or get that diagnosis or experience the breakup of a relationship. Even the ever-faithful Job asks God why he has been forsaken. Who among us has not felt forsaken at some point in our life? We ache for comfort, relief, explanations, and rescue. Blessedly, few of us experience realities as demoralizing as Job faced. Even so, to insist reality should automatically be different than it is represents the exact opposite of living deliberately. That is to surrender rather than succumb to the reality of what is, to face it without excuses or denial. That is my definition of grace. And understand that this type of surrender shouldn't be confused with acquiescence or powerlessness, just the opposite. There is incredible power, great maturity, and humility in this type of surrender. I realize this philosophy can be hard to accept or reconcile when chaos or viruses show up instead of order, when we cannot totally control outcomes. The Reverend Vanessa Southern admits to this sentiment when we may share when she writes, I used to think life could be counted on to be stable. It was my parents' fault. They engineered my world to send just that message, the predictability of the evening bedtime and the packed lunch, that the world would always feel safe. But maybe instead of being taught to accept predictability, she argues, we should have been taught to expect chaos, or at least snags. We should have been told turbulence in the air is normal, not the exception. Keep your air sickness bag close, ladies and gentlemen. This ride will be shaky. Good advice. Her musings remind me of a wonderful, quirky movie that came out couple decades ago now, I think, called The Straight Story. Maybe you've seen it, in which a modern-day Ulysses makes his way across Iowa atop a lawn tractor in a quest to reconcile with his estranged and ailing brother. I don't know if you remember this film, but at one juncture in the straight story, he comes upon a woman leaning against her car, crying with her head in her hands, and in the road lay a dead deer. All around them are open fields as far as the eye can see. And our hero stops to comfort her, and she explains her plight. "This is the third one I've hit this year. Where do they come from? I don't know what to do," she wails. "I have no choice. I have to go this way." And it's this line, "I have to go this way," that really struck me. Because in the context of this sermon, that woman, she has a few options. She can drive 40 miles out of her way to avoid another possible collision with a deer. She can stay home. She can surrender to the reality that, like us, she has to go this way. Take her chances. Make her choices. Be humble and kind and hopeful and derive what meaning she can from the sublime moments of grace and the maddening encounters with uncontrolled randomness. David Beeves, remember him from the beginning of my sermon? Well, Miller's lucky lad, he eventually has his own epiphany too. He realizes he was lucky because he made good fortune work for him. At each lucky crossroad, he acted on his fate and he directed it. He realized that individuals must pay attention, they must be responsible for their actions, and that they are irrevocably connected morally to one another and to the universe. So finally, if hesitantly, he runs upstairs to embrace his child. One can almost hear the words of another great American playwright, Thornton Wilder, who tells us, "My advice to you is not to inquire why or whither, but just to enjoy your ice cream when it's on your plate." Now, I would argue that it is okay to inquire why and whither, and to enjoy your ice cream while it's on your plate. We have choices to make, like this inadvertent deer killer on the road in Iowa, like David Beeves. We can run and hide, we can cower and fret, or we can take a new route. And like Job, we can eventually confront the real. My friends, try to remember, hope is better than luck. Expect chaos, yet be brave and foolish enough to hope, and faithful enough to live deliberately despite the randomness, the fear, and the tragedy. We will find our way through together. This is my day, and this is your day, and every which way grace, reliable and unpredictable, will come to find us all the same. It may arrive in odd packages, it may look like loss or mistakes, but it will grow us up and it will let us be children. Grace may even come in the form of an ice cream truck that shows up on time and has your favorite. Whether we can maintain our good humor if it doesn't, well, a true spiritual life wouldn't be much without a challenge. Now would it? Blessed be, blessed we, and amen. Our final hymn is number 128 in the gray hymnal, "For All That Is Our Life." Please rise as you are willing and able.
The offering words are from Brandock Lovely. Let there be an offering to sustain and strengthen this place, which is sacred to so many of us, a community of memory and of hope, for we are now the keepers of the dream. Half of each Sunday's collection is shared with a local organization doing good works in the area. This quarter, our Sharing the Bounty partner is Outgrowing Hunger. Okay. Outgrowing Hunger builds and operates community farms and gardens for refugees, immigrants, and people who care about accessible access to real food in Portland and Gresham. Nadaka Park Community Gardens, with its 62 plots, is one that they operate. If you are a first-time visitor, please let the basket pass you by. You are our guest. We now gratefully receive the gifts of this congregation. As our chalice flame is extinguished this morning, we can still remember that its glow is carried within us. We can still use our inner lights and this flame to kindle new sparks throughout our lives and in the world. May the spirit of peace and togetherness bless our lives.
After the service today, if you want to grab a cup of coffee and socialize a little bit and then come back in here for a spirited conversation, we'll be talking about the theme of the service today, but also just whatever might be on your mind that you want to toss around with other people here at Eastrose. I also want to say what a joy it is to worship with my two colleagues, Rev Barbara and Rev Suzie. I want to thank John and Tara and our greeters for collaborating on our service today. Our benediction is a poem by Tom Hirons called In the Meantime. He writes, "Meantime, flowers still bloom, the moon rises and the sun. Babies smile, and somewhere against all odds, two people are falling in love. Strangers share subway seats and jokes. Light plays on the surface of the water. Grace occurs on unlikely streets, and we hold each other fast against entropy, the fires, and the flood. Life leans towards living, and while death claims all things at the end, there were such precious times between in which everything was radiant, and we loved again this world in the meantime. So may it be for us. Blessed be, blessed we, and amen."
There are a few announcements. Does anyone know where the batteries that were in the fridge went?
Do you want to do the prelude after the announcement?
Oh, yes, let's do that.
Prelude and then the announcement?
A prelude.
Okay.
I like music before announcements.
Is that it?
No.
So we're going to do the prelude and then we're going to do the announcements.
Yes. So much better than announcements. Okay. Yes, we do. Okay, first one. Does anyone know where the batteries that were in the fridge went? You know. Okay, let John know. That John. There's a few Johns in here, so. Snowcap volunteers, August 9th, Friday from 3 to 5. Come and join and have a good, and in a good cause. Good cause? Who's keen? See Keen for any more information about helping with Snowcap. And again, you know, life happens and the concussion still, for me, side effects still go on, so hence my glasses, the lights get too much. But it is time. Service is over, time for coffee, tea, and conversation, and then afterwards, conversation. Have a great Sunday.